don't always offer up a
Hold on. He went out the door and then knocked at it. Be right back.
All
We
right.
can make this easy for you, Brandon. Just start over again.
Yeah. We'll just let it stream for a second. We'll get everyone on board. We'll greet the listeners, let them come in.
I've had this same
Talk about
cold.
daylight savings time for like the 1 millionth
God.
time on this podcast. Why do you guys keep talking about daylight savings time? It's a very important topic to us. We can't stop.
It's because we work with computers. When you work with computers, daylight savings
we
time
were.
is very important. Man, I've had this same cold going on. It's going to be a month if I don't get rid of it next week. I don't know what the fuck is that. COVID? Should I
Long
take
COVID?
a test? Anyways, all right.
No. All right, here we go. Here, I'll count you in, Cote. You ready? For real this time. 3, 2.
Well, I don't always offer this up, but I thought today I was thinking, what should we start talking about? The famous cold open, and so I wanted to offer up. I don't know how you if you both vote for the opposite thing. I guess I'll be the tie vote, but I wanted to offer up 2 opening conversations. One, I'm going to call it controlling your enthusiasm at work so that you don't burn out. Or 2, who are these people with awesome command line utilities that they're posting blog posts about, and how do I live that life?
Okay, I'll go command line utilities for 200, Alex. Matt, I'll let you vote for the second.
Yeah, as much as I like to talk about my burnout, I'll probably go CLI utilities for the win.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. I hadn't really formulated the first one, but it was something I was thinking about as I was biking home from I was going to say from life, but that's I guess kind of the point. Biking home from something today. So I read through. I should have it in front of me. We'll have it in the show links, which you can read if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/544. But there was someone with a very artisanally made blog, which I appreciate nowadays. I went to a blog the other day where, you remember this, fellas? You would move the cursor around and a little thing would follow your cursor.
Ooh, sparkles.
Yeah. Well, this one was I have a monitor that's so old that it's like Pong. Like you can kind of see where the cursor used to be for a lot. I loved it. It was great. It's not that guy's blog. This guy was he was doing art with squids or something. But this other person, they were cataloging all these command line utilities not utilities is the wrong word, scripts that they have written.
Yeah.
Right. So, we of course are living in the post PB copy and PB paste era, right? This was a monumental thing for command line people is to discover those 2 utilities, which I think we've covered several times on the podcast. And so this was kind of like, I feel like the next stage in that evolution, the next major thing where this person had used PB paste and PB copy in scripts that he had written, right? And so it's kind of this evolution of stuff. But there was also like, here's a command line tool that I use that downloads YouTube things for me. Here's one that I use to just shut down to lock my screen, right? Like for example, the one that I haven't done this yet, but I don't know how your Mac lifestyles are going. But I feel like I've given up on selecting that option in settings that says, don't fuck with my bright level. And I think they just put that in there to fuck with you because you select that and then multiple times a day, the brightness level of my screen goes down. So like I'm constantly like maxing
Turning
out
that
my
on.
brightness. And
Yeah.
that's the example of what I'm talking about here is like, I think what I need to do, it's 2 phases here. And I'm hoping we can have an invigorating discussion about this lifestyle because I love the lifestyle stuff. But like, I think what I need to do is write a command line script called like bright, and all it does is executes set my brightness level at 100%, right? And okay, so now that utility is great, but in thinking through this, I realized what would my life be like if I always had the terminal open. And it's not that I was like programming or like, building a mesosphere cluster, but it was that I was just doing things like turning my brightness up and down, right? Like I'm using the command line as like, and that's as far as I went. Because I think there are people who are living that life. they're like doing the shit on the command line instead of like right clicking and going to the system settings or using Spotlight, which just as
Yeah.
a side note, I think Spotlight's fine. You don't have to use Alfred anymore. And so like, that's what I wanted to ask about is like, okay, one, am I sensing that there's this lifestyle out there that I haven't experienced yet? And then two, if so, what is that like?
All right, well, I think the answer to all your questions, like it is on the show, is AI, because I actually do think Gemini or ChatGPT I will say this, it has
Good pivot there.
reinvigorated my use of the terminal and the command line. Because what I think prevents a lot of these things is like you could do all of this before, right? It was just, do you have the patience, the time to go
Inscrutable.
look up the command, and then when you find the command, it's like the many different command line arguments and switches to get it to do exactly what you want. And I have done 100 times the amount of scripts and command line things that I used to do pre-AI, because it's just easy you can basically just ask it. Like, I don't know, I bet, we could probably do it right now. We won't bore the audience, but you could probably just do like, whatever your favorite chat GPT or equivalent, just be like, write me a command line script for Mac OS that adjusts the brightness to 100% and whatever else you wanted. And it will
I've
probably
done that,
spit.
Brandon.
Okay. And well, I'm just saying, but like, I find that like, the more you do, in fact, I had a great experience the other day. I was actually doing something for the podcast where I was trying to, if you will, just apply cover art to an audio file so that I could put it up on a video place, right? Super simple. Right. And so I was, of course, I don't want to, I'm like in iMovie and I'm asking it how to do an iMovie, and it says, oh, it looks like you're trying to do this. Did you know you can use FFmpeg, right? Remember that utility?
Oh, yeah.
And you can do this. And if you type in this command, right? And the command has probably 10 arguments. If you turn it in this, it'll do it for you. And I was like, thank you very much. And then boom. And then I said, make that a script for me. And now it's in my little utilities folder. And it would have taken me probably at least an hour to like learn all the FFmpeg commands and options to do it. And it's like, so that's just one of numerous examples.
Right,
so I think the command,
example.
the long story is like, I think we can all live this life now. We can all ask AI to, and it's kind of to Matt's point, like the thing we always talk about, it's the kind of thing that's perfect because like you can test it, get it exactly the way you want, make it, if you will, save it, and it, it's 100% repeatable and never changes unless you change it. So it's the kind of the perfect AI task to me.
Okay, now I want Matt. I know you're ready to go, but I just want to interject because I think it's going to help explain what I'm saying here. Maybe one of you two can for our viewers, which you can always view in a more or less regular schedule as we do this live. It's very exciting. It's unedited, more or less. But so I found the blog post, and this thought occurred to me when I looked at the following, which we'll put in the show notes. And this person was like, hey, I need to find an emoji every now and then, and here's the command line thing I used to use it. And it makes sense. He's just kind of like types in, I want emoji of winking, and then it does the winking thing. So I went to go look at this script. And when you look at this script, what he has done, I think it's a he, whatever. What this person has done is they have taken, let me count the lines here. Great podcast material. There are, hold on, I'm still scrolling to make the point. There are maybe every emoji. This is a 1,911 line script. And I think maybe 1,900 of those lines are just emojis followed by a line of text.
So
Okay.
it's the equivalent of the autocomplete in Slack when you're like, I don't know, emoji, and it
Right. And then all they're doing, and I'm not demeaning this at all. This is what I'm running towards in this discussion is they just wrote some awk thing that goes through and searches through their whole stuff to kind of find out like, oh, well, if I want this, and so they went through, maybe they got AI to do this, to your point, Brandon. But so if you look at like, hold on, let me pause again so I can scroll back up. If you look at, I'm still scrolling, going here. Okay, so if you look at the normal smiley one, right? It says, the text next to it says, smiley, awesome, face grin, happy mouth, open smile, smiling face with open mouth, teeth, yay, right? Now, so what they're doing is they're like, anytime I think of something, I've put that keyword in there, and I'm going to go to the command line and type emoji grin, and then it points that out right now. Now I know I'm going on and on about this, but this is a big moment in my mind this week. Is I was thinking, when I was a Java programmer, this would be a fireable script, right? Like if in your approach to life and computers, this is the opposite. This is not the Perl obfuscation contest. That would just be like you don't even get hired. But this,
or they do because you're awesome.
Right. But this is a whole other way of thinking. That is
Absolutely.
a whole other way of thinking. Now, how I think this pulls together is, I think this is what the command line lifestyle is like you're not looking for this like elegance, do not repeat yourself, UML sort of thing. You're like, no, you have a 1900 line script that just describes all the emoji, and then you run awk to find it, and then in milliseconds you get what you want.
Right.
No, I think that's true. But I would just say this though. I would think of it slightly differently. It's sort of like that's like the beginning script, and maybe that for that person, that's exactly the way they want it. But like what I find is like I'll actually start creating something like that, but then go back to the AI. And now that is, especially if you have it working end to end.
Yes.
Especially if you got something like Cursor or Claude Code, be like, how could you could just ask it, how could I refactor or rewrite this script so it's more maintainable, easier to use, and does it. And it will usually spit back. Like I have no idea what it would do, but for this one, it may say it's like, yeah, I put all of the configuration emoji stuff in the text file. And the logic is here, and the text file is here, and the all you have to do now is if you want to add a new keyword is edit the text file. I don't know if that's what it would do, but like that kind of stuff. So I think you can, and I think this is sort of like you can get it to like where you feel comfortable with. So maybe like I kind of hear that, and I'd be like, I'd do a couple more iterations with AI before I gave up. But maybe I would stop before Matt would go even further and make it more reusable or less, so that's what I like about it is you can kind of find your own, like, okay, it's good enough. I don't want to waste any more time on this. Maybe it's not something I would check into GitHub and share with the world, but it does the job for myself. I don't know. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I think there's a line here between the scripts you write for yourself and the code you write for sharing for work. And I've written stuff like this. I mean, not this horrible. In my AI development utopia world, I'd be like, okay, AI, you maintain this thing, right? You keep it up to date. Just never let it break. But just new emojis come out, you update this thing, and that becomes somebody else's problem. But it's also the kind of thing that you're like, you feel kind of silly sharing. Because you're like, look what I wrote, and people are like, that's stupid. But also it's like, but it's something I use every day, which is the equivalent of sharing dot files and Emacs configs, and people are like, these are the scripts I live on. And if you look through those, usually you're like, this is garbage because it's not the way I do it, but obviously someone's tailored it to their workflow.
Right.
So it's fun to read through, but it's, I don't know, it definitely, on the AI side, it leads to the discouragement of maintaining libraries. I've seen a couple of blog posts that have the provocative clickbaity headlines of things like our library's dead. Because the AI is just like, oh, I'll write that for you, right? And you don't have to maintain this thing anymore. So that's kind of always existed in the shell script space where people write these sorts of things, but eventually you do see CLI power tools emerging, or people are like, I'm going to rewrite this whole thing in Rust and support every flag, and like, so I
think maybe that's the thing that like I'm trying to like sort out in my head is the phrase you just said there, power tools, is like you have to be able to make power tools but not ship those as your enterprise software, but it's easy. I think maybe this is just me, but I think it's easy for individuals to only live one of those two lifestyles. And the whole point is like, you could live both, right? Like
you can live both.
You like ship the enterprise stuff, and that is not a 1900 line script that has all the emojis in it. That is like a the
installer is though, right?
right. In contrast, you might have like a multi-region sharded database that is using like the best way to store emojis and like is constantly being updated with the keywords, and then you search it, or there's just an awk script, right? Like, Yeah, I don't know. I had another thought, but I just forgot it.
I
But
don't know. I would say you can have it. In this case, I feel like you can have your cake and eat it too, if you will. And I do think I think like the simplest thing you can do now that you have a script like that, I find is to like, and you can use AI to do this. Have AI like say, hey, check, create a GitHub repository, check it into your private repository, and then have it, and then ask it like write a README for what this thing is and how to use it, right? And you just put it there, and then I think that's good. The fact, no matter what, if it's good or bad, or if you're proud of it or you're not, it's sort of like becomes this thing, and it's like, okay, it sits there, and maybe you use it and it gets valuable. You get value of it, and then you kind of figure out, it's like, it would be better if it had this next feature and this next thing, and I'm willing to put a little bit more time and effort to make it a little bit more reusable. Or it's just sort of like sits out there as just sort of like it's nice reference to what you did before. And I think it's like it's almost you're allowing things to graduate naturally in your own personal workflow. If something becomes more important, if the idea actually is worth sharing, you can go back and put more effort into it. But it's just like,
Okay,
you've
that's
done the
interesting.
initial, it's just the initial proof of concept. It works.
Yeah.
The classic works for me. And then it's just like, if it's worthy, you will put more time and effort into it. If it's not, it just sits on the shelf as a nice little utility that you and you alone use, which is perfectly acceptable.
Wait, and okay, so yes, I that makes sense. Now let me ask you something, Matt. The another approach there, which or a complement, not contradictory approach, is I think the other thing with this script, this command line lifestyle, is you have scripts that do basically one thing with minimal command line flags. Like once you start layering different options and things on it, then you should just have a different script. And so there is, if you find yourself having a monolithic script, that's wrong. Like that's not the command line lifestyle. You should be writing Java instead. And instead what you want, or Rust probably is what you're doing, but instead you're just like, this one script does this one thing, and I have 300 of them, right? And that's more of the approach that you want to take in this command line lifestyle.
I agree. I mean, I have lots of, goofily named shell scripts that are like, do this one thing .sh, right? Because that's the experience you want. What I kind of wanted to circle back with is the CLI interface versus like, the enterprise day job stuff, where I think the virtuous cycle is when the product is open source, hopefully done right. You have people who are like, oh yeah, that platform, I work with it every day, but I wish it could do this one thing, and they're writing shell scripts to interact with it. And the really useful, powerful platforms are the ones that like, oh yeah, it's great for everyday users where they can do whatever they want, but they've got an API interface that can be scripted, so I can work with it programmatically. That's where like the real power users want to live. And so the people who are writing all these day-to-day shell scripts, they're also the ones who are like, you know what, I can, I'm dealing with Workday or Grafana, whatever this platform is, and it's got something I want and I can script with it. That's where like the really great platforms is when they're great for the everyday users, but they still have something in reserve for those power users. And
so maybe this is what we wanted with OpenAI Atlas, is we wanted instead of a browser, you want it to be the command line, and the job of the AI is like, hey, AI, I need to file some expenses in Workday. Can you do whatever is possible so I can just type this on the command line? And like you do the coding and stuff, and give me 5 command line tools to file my expenses. That would be like, I think if you could file your expenses from the command line, that would be the triumph of the command line.
But I do think what you're getting on, and there's been a few attempts, I think we mentioned it on the show, someone recommended, I think it was Warp, is like a command line. It's like a terminal with AI built into it. I tried it out. I didn't personally like it that much, but like you kind of see where these things are going, right? The idea that like, it would be nice for me to just talk to the computer and like directly, and just like, no, I don't want you to go to the web. I want you to like write me a thing that does this, right? And then for it to or just create a thing that does this so I can run it and repeat this task over and over. And it's like, today it's still kind of cut and paste. You go to You go to your favorite ChatGPT and you make it. But like if you could go and so this is maybe where if you really wanted to be optimistic about it, it would be like AI kind of just figuring this stuff out and kind of producing these, especially for a technical audience, producing these artifacts that can be rerun and are very predictable. Like I think that would definitely be a huge value.
But I see a lot of, or maybe it's just the neck of the internet I hang out. I see a lot of pushback on this too, though, from like CLI power users when things like iTerm or Warp start introducing AI features. People are like, "Nope, I'm out," because they feel that there's some sort of information leakage there. Maybe
but you get to balance that. I mean, especially when this is a great place where we get to it. It's like, think about how few people actually even know what the terminal is or how to
absolutely.
Use it, right? It's like so if you're the power user and you already know all of this, okay, fine. You don't need it. But like, I think even like I find like it's incredible to just the fact that I know the command line exists and I have some basic working knowledge, and I maybe once remember watching Matt Ray type in something on the command line that did this is enough to like get me going. I know I can go ask it. You know what I mean? I know there's a way to like search all the files on the computer or the things you're doing, Coach A. It's like every setting on Mac OS, there's some type of plist update command line thing I can probably do. And just knowing that it exists and being able to ask those questions like opens up a whole new world with AI. Whereas like I would never spend time like researching this stuff, right? And so I just think it's like if you could get to the point where like the next level person that like I don't even know what the terminal is could just ask questions like configure. I always joke about this, but like I'm getting on a Zoom call, make sure put my headset sound on and my microphone and like do all of that for me so that I'm not like I can't get on my conference call. Stuff like that would be so valuable.
Example. Now, what viewers don't know and listeners is that we spend about let's say 10 to 45 minutes every episode getting our audio set up. Now,
At
Matt
least.
Ray, can you just write us a script to do that?
Right. I mean, it's like we can't even do it. So I like it. Listen, Coach A, I think we can all live this lifestyle. I think everyone, the command line lifestyle is now available to many, many more people than it once was. So good for you.
Speaking of lifestyles, I think exciting news for people who are living the Excel lifestyle is now our friend Claude. It's in a wait list, so I haven't tried it out yet. I'm not high on their list of people to release features related to spreadsheets or any feature. And it looks like they're going to add a little sidebar, a little side thing that allows. Currently, you can't do VBA or pivot tables, which is what I need help with. But it looks like it'll do all of Excel stuff. And you were saying for something, Brandon, that I think is a good way of thinking about this. My theory is you almost said it in these words, Brandon. I think seeing this and our command line talk and then some conversations I was having today and my own stuff is I don't think AI is for experts. So I think if you're really good at Excel, if you've placed even 342 on the worldwide Excelling championship leaderboards or below, I think you kind of look at this kind of tool and you're like, yes, but I can type, right? And like you don't really need that. But people like me, I would like to use it, right? But once it does get VBA and because everything I want to do in Google Sheets or nowadays or Excel, I'll go look it up in the AI and it's like, hey, check out this VBA code you need to put in there, and I'm like, I'm out.
Done.
Like, why the fuck am I using this program if I've got to program something?
Yeah.
But so like it would be great if it did that kind of thing, but it does make me think that if you're already really good at using Excel, then you don't give a fuck, right? You're like, I can do it, right? But for I'm repeating myself here, but for people like me who can't do stuff on the command line, now I'm thinking like, maybe I could just ask it to help me with the sed script. I don't even know what sed is, but I know it was on that book and it's related to awk.
No, I totally agree.
And so that seems like with this kind of Excel thing, that seems like probably what's going on more with this sort of stuff. And then it makes me think more broadly, I think maybe that's the whole deal with AI and knowledge work. Is it just as helping the people who don't know what they're doing do it a little bit less worse?
Hopefully.
But I was going to say, just to pick on that, because I think, this week, Jensen Huang, there's a big conference at GTC, and I think he framed up, part of his talk that he gave, I think he framed things in an interesting way, and it's probably good for us to debate here. It's like, his point is to say, up until now, all the software that we've built is essentially tools. Human beings use these tools, right? And the tools market, let's just call it think about every program is a tool, and say, okay, that's maybe worth like $1 trillion of like, market cap. And so he's sort of putting forth this like AI though is all about a worker, right? So, and this is sort of kind of gets back to like, I think the tension we often hit on the show. It's like, is AI a better way to use tools and create new tools, right? That knowledge workers will use? Or is AI actually going to do the work that the knowledge worker would have done? And that work product is what people want. And I think, we've talked a lot about like the coding tools on here, and we talked about last week, and you're hitting on it again around spreadsheets. And so I was kind of like you. I'm like, this is great at spreadsheets. But then I kind of ran across some investment bankers. I watched them kind of discuss these announcements, and they were making kind of the same case that I think a lot of software developers do. It's like, hey, and it goes something like this. It's like, building the Excel model is not the hard part. The hard part is all the assumptions about the business that you're putting into the model that ultimately create the valuation is the hard part. Like figuring out the invoices and the logic about how, and all you're really trying to do is you're taking all of that knowledge that you have about the company and you're putting it in a standardized format in Excel such that other people can see your model. But what's important at the end of that, I'm just making their case, is that you have a person that now understands the companies backwards and forward, and you can go to them. And if you and I were doing a deal, I could ask you, Cote, like, why is the model saying this? What assumptions are in here? How should we do it? So it's like the act of using the spreadsheet creates the knowledge inside the worker's head, but you still want that's what you really want. You want the worker with the knowledge such that I can actually ask questions and talk about it, right? Versus actually, just giving the senior banker the Excel model. And I think you could just take that same argument and say, put software in there, right? I need a software developer who's actually embedding all the assumptions and the business logic in there. And yes, you can run it, but I still need the software developer because him or her having done all this work is the actual product, not, you know what I mean? So that's where I think this tension kind of lives, right? Like, and this is like, I think and this is like central to the AI, is it taking over the world or is it the tools? If you're Jensen Huang, you're like, no, the workers will go away. The worker does everything. The AI worker does everything. They create the model and I can still interact with it. And it does is exactly what I want. And that's super valuable versus I think knowledge workers in general. And I think coding, legal briefing, reading MRIs, people say, no, it's just another tool. You still need the person because the person is actually the thing that you want, right? Yeah. That's your value. And I think that's our fundamental tension. So I don't know, Matt, I wonder, Matt, where do you come down on this discussion?
Well, first of all, I love that the investment bankers are finally understanding the plight of the liberal arts major. that has been the liberal arts thing forever. It's like, it's not important that we are studying literature from 1432 that has no applicability to current day. We're learning how to learn and how to discuss things, which is wonderful.
Well, and the real downside of AI taking over Excel is there's no comments anywhere. So, I mean, you have these, spreadsheets, models that, unless people are, really descriptive in their column headers, sometimes are kind of intractable. They're not fully understanding what's happening there, but, if you just hand everything over to black boxes, I feel, people already have trouble with spreadsheets. I think I joked previously, you don't hear people complain about outages with VMware. It's just a black box that works like a champ, but you hear about Excel things all the time, right?
Right, but I think this is where we're going. Like, so I think kind of continuing this on, like, how is this debate ultimately going to be settled, right? And I think we'll just use the investment banking because we're talking about that one, but all of these knowledge worker jobs comes down to this. It's like, the person that ultimately hires, the knowledge worker is ultimately going to be able to decide between do I just want the work product? So in this case, the spreadsheet. Like, is that truly what I want? Or do I want instead, do I want the actual person that's done the work, and I want to be able, that person to actually talk to me? Like, I want to be able to call that person up, have them come to my office, answer questions, participate in it, because that's like the fundamental tension. Because at the end of it, it comes down to, and I think this is where like everybody, I think if you're doing the knowledge work, it's natural to feel like I'm valuable. I'm the thing. I am what people want. You don't want just like you don't want me robot, just my output. You don't want my emails and my documents. You actually want to speak to me, right? I think that's like a normal human feeling to be like, I want that. But like the person, you know what? They may hear like Matt Ray come in and talk and be like, actually, you know, if I just have the spreadsheet, I can just type in the model myself. And it's like, and I don't have to pay that person all this money. And like, turns out it's just as good as having the person. And I think that to me is like the go forward question is simply that.
I think that's right. And, you know, it's sort of like, can you be replaced by a command line script? That's and I think,
well, because the command line keeps getting better, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you know, and I think the only way to answer this question is to like try it. Right?
Well, that's the world we're living in. It's the question of, you know, does the rising tide lift all boats, or was everybody stuck on the ground and they all drowned?
So that like I was thinking that, like as you were saying that, Brandon, because like also you know, Amazon is having its biggest layoffs ever, which
exactly
sounds like the copy for like a sale weekend got mixed up in the HR printout somewhere when I phrase it that way.
Yeah, that marketing AI not so good.
Anyways, you know, I haven't read it in depth, but of course there's some correlation that one could do, that like there's all this AI talk, they're getting rid of people, and then Jassy said in the summer they could reduce a lot of things with AI. But I do wonder, like, so how much of that is really AI replacing someone versus just like, we might have hired a lot of people? And so when I was reading through the one article that we have in our show notes at softwaredefinedtalk.com/544, the article rounded up lots of tech layoffs, but there was only one, at least as they wrote it. I did thorough work by reading the article instead of summarizing it, was of course Salesforce being like, oh yeah, we got rid of a bunch of customer service people because AI is doing that for us now. It was a little more tame than that. But all of the other ones are just like, well, they just laid off people. And so what I mean by like trying it out is like, so how many AIs do we have replacing people? Because I don't hear a ton about that. There's a lot of potential. And, you know, maybe in the entertainment industry, that seems like some valid freaking the fuck out that people should be having over there. But as far as like replacing an investment banker, yeah, like, I don't know, call up Jamie Dimon and have him test it out, see what happens.
Well, I think,
like that would,
but I think that's kind of where it's going on. I would say today, all the layoffs, I mean, I see everyone kind of reference AI, but I don't think we're even close to like, these are actually being replaced by AIs. Now, we may get there, right? And I think, and this is, I guess, ultimately, I think I have two thoughts about the whole thing around that like kind of come to my mind. Like one, on the more like, you know, the knowledge worker kind of the con side is like, what we may learn actually is like, and then kind of like an almost an adjacent thing is it actually turns out that what the work the knowledge worker was doing before was just not that useful at all, right? Like, you know, like it's just like someone that spent, like we've all been in a meeting that we've all, and I bet you could have been, and maybe even more than me, but it's like, you have like 10 pre-meetings going over a set of slides, all for a big executive presentation. You spend like, I don't know, 50 hours over 3 weeks and 20 meetings, and you have like your 25 perfect slides for that you're going to meet with your executive, right? And then you go into the presentation and the executive's like, they see one side, it's like, actually, I'm good with everything on this. We're good. We can go to the next topic, right? And you're like, we didn't need to do any of that work. I mean, that has happened numerous times, right? And so like you may learn like that may be a reveal here is like a bunch of the stuff is just wasn't needed, right? You don't need all these Excel models. So that's one potential thing. And then I think on the other side, if you will, the defense of the knowledge worker is like, when I think of it as CEO, so just think of one person running the company. It's like, okay, does that person, instead of having people to talk to, are they comfortable with just interacting with AI? And the answer is definitely no. That person wants a staff. They want an administrative assistant. They want a chief of staff. They want someone taking them to meetings every day, and they're making high-powered decisions. So it's like, I don't think that person is going to be okay with AI. And then you go to the next meeting. Okay, now you have the quote S team meeting. There's 20 people with executive titles there, right? Okay, is that group all just okay? All they have now is AIs below them? I don't think so. They're going to want to have people to talk to. So it's like there's almost like a thing of like how far do you have to go down before someone's like, yes, I actually am going to replace my staff, and I prefer not to have staff. I don't want to have staff. I just want to have AIs. And it feels like when you start to do that, it's like you have to go pretty low in the hierarchy before you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't want the staff, you know?
I forget what you call this kind of thing, but the imagine your life if what we were talking about was the case, right? And I think, I think there's a good principle to pull out from there is, so like if you're a good time having executive and you're like, I think Jensen's right, we're going to replace all of these staff with an AI. You should probably ask yourself, like, well, is that what I want? As you're saying, right? Like, or do I actually want to talk with people? And I think maybe an indicator of that is if you don't make your own slides, you probably want people, right?
Exactly.
Because like, I think, and this, I'm going to make fun of a lot of stuff here, be serious about it, so to speak. But like, I think the optimistic thing that you want in this dichotomy situation or whatever is, there's a lot of work that you have to do as a knowledge worker, because you've got to create all this content. Whereas really, yes, you do want to have just a discussion and think about it and like make a decision, but you spend all your time updating the slides. So maybe if we did just update the slides, we could actually have the meeting in the meeting. So to use the old Gelsinger thing. But I do think that the way a lot of knowledge workers end up being like a meat mouse for their executive. And you always want to be like, listen, I appreciate having a job that you click on my left and right buttons to make me make your slides, but like maybe make your own slides and we could all save a lot of time. Like it's sort of, you should type your own stuff. You could write this stuff because you're just talking and I'm typing it down, and then you press the delete key on me and I go delete the thing you just said. And, on and on and on, which is sort of like, so maybe it's not so much that you want your workers replaced, is like the executive should go talk to the AI for that first meeting, and then they can bring the slides to the meeting and have the staff help out with it and kind of like weigh in on what's happening. Like you could almost reverse the flow with it. Because it does seem like you do want the people involved in there, I guess. But, it gets back to like, well, I don't know. Or maybe the executive does just want like one AI they're talking to.
I think it is, but I think, I was watching Jensen's, keynote some, and I had two thoughts there, right? It was like, one, it's like, well, like when will Jensen feel like willing, I guess, or comfortable enough that he would just allow the AI to make all the slides for his keynote?
Oh,
right? No one else is going to be involved. Cause like, obviously it probably, I don't know, 100 plus slides and case studies. And they were, kind of like well-designed, and they kind of have like a design font. And it's like, when would, what I'm saying? So it's like, if it is going to replace all the work, like it feels pretty long. It feels like
it's a good point.
It feels like Jensen would never, I mean, to me, it feels like he'll never walk on stage having only had the AI do the slides, and maybe only he looked at them. Right. Like you think about how many people went into that. So that'd be a question back to him. It's like, when are you going to give your next GTC keynote where it's like, it's 100%.
It's
I'm just talking about the speech, not the actual work. The speech and the slides are 100% created by AI.
Why does he even need to be there?
Well, I mean, that's maybe the next question, but before we get there, we could at least get to that level, right? That would be my other question. And then of course, like one of the things he spends a lot of time talking about, especially in this keynote, was CUDA, right? That's the layer of software that makes the NVIDIA GPUs, like, works the magic. And it's like, so he goes on and talking about how important it is, and how he's got every person that's coding at NVIDIA has Cursor and things like that. But it's like, okay, well, like, well, why not just have, and that's really their moat, right? That's the thing it kind of comes back to. It's like, well, like when will there be an AI that just goes out and says like, build me an equivalent API that's as good, if not better than CUDA, right? Sure. Like, is that where we're going? I mean, I guess that's kind of a question back to him. It's like, if so, like how far are we away from that? And if so, doesn't that mean your moat goes away? Like so there's these inherent contradictions as you're watching someone present, right? It's like when you start to turn it back on them, I think he would say, of course they could never make my presentation slides. It's like, it's very complicated. I have a staff of 20 working on this. And the same thing he would say about CUDA. It's like, he would say something like, Brandon, we've invested 15 years and tens of thousands of man hours, and this can't be replicated. But it's like, well, wait a minute. You're just talked about how these agents are going to do the workers. So it seems like maybe we're getting close, right? I don't know. I think that's just a fundamental tension. I think this exists in all of these conversations right now.
I guess that is like, I mean, it's kind of like a shit-eating grin kind of like thing, but it is an accurate tool rhetorically, is to be like, hey man, I haven't read that book, but I think you have like 80 direct reports. So why don't you tell me when you've replaced 30 of them with a robot? Right. And
maybe that's really even a better question. Right.
And I think Matt just did the up level thing of it. Is like, why are you giving this keynote then?
Wait. Why are you running this company?
Right. And like, so finding that line, James Waters had this thing called the value line, which is like, find out where the technology is commoditized, and everything above the value line you customize, and like that, because you get value, because you get differentiation. And of course, the point was, all this container shit is not going to like make you money. Like, just it's below the value line. But maybe that's what we need to have in the AI thing, is like, so where is the value line? And the value line being the human line. Like, at what point do you like, below this is all AI and above that is humans? And we could start with the Matt Ray benchmark, Jensen Huang giving a keynote. Is that above or below the value line? And then let's work our way down from there, right? Like what where do things fall with that? Because I think, and going back, I mean, that does seem like at this point we just gotta you gotta go through it to figure it out. Just like run it, right? Like, so what exactly can we replace with this stuff? And until we do the experiments, we have no idea. Because otherwise, it's just a bunch of conjecture and people theorizing and stuff, which is great for podcast material.
We're gonna see like lots of experimentation with it. We're gonna have Amazon saying, "Oh, we're getting rid of 30,000 people," and we're gonna have all these different companies like, "Oh, we're laying people off." But the problem is like nobody is kind of maintaining the status quo of like, "Oh, we're actually going to invest more in our workers and spend more time trying to get it right." I just feel like there's going to be a lot of seesawing back and forth, just whipsawing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the other thing is like, I think we just have to I think we have to separate the rhetoric and the press releases about people making cost reductions and from AI, because I think at this point, like, it needs to be the experiments need to be run at a much smaller level. Like, okay, like customer support is obviously an obvious one that's getting run a lot, but it's whatever you want to pick out, like accounting or something like that. It's like, okay, like, I mean, maybe the investment banking one and with Claude or OpenAI would be the next one to be like, okay, we are literally going to assign a senior banker. We're going to assign that person an agent. Okay. And we're going to assign that person as an agent. The other person has a junior banker. Okay. We're now going to let them work for a year together. And we're going to see what happens. Okay. Did the agent, was it able to do it? Was the junior banker adequate? Because I mean, that's the kind of thing you really want to see and be like, what actually worked? Right. And then at the end, you can make some educated opinion about like, yeah, it did work or it didn't work, and it really comes back to like, I think it would reveal this is a tool, not a worker, right? That's what you want to know. Was it a tool or a worker? What did you get?
I think if this stuff was really working, we would be seeing like more stock portfolios run by AI.
Well, I think
that is the most like direct feedback there is.
Sure, but like I think that's even like I'm just like much simpler than that, right? Like make stuff that's much simpler, like taxes. There's a set of inputs, a set of outputs, right? Like just stuff that is very, very rudimentary. Like you could argue stocks, there's a lot of volatility. It's just like literally like how many tax returns can you prepare correctly, right? that people that are then accepted by the IRS. Take a regular accountant and take a thing. And it's just like, go. Like, okay, call me when it can be done, right? You know what I mean? It's like I think start small and then move up to these other levels. That's what I'd love to see.
I think as people joke all the time in the waves of AI, the Turing test, the line for it always gets moved for each new cycle of AI stuff. And so maybe we can repurpose the thought technology of a Turing test. And for what you're saying, Brandon, is like, let's have a few tests where the senior investment banker gets an agent, but they don't know if it's an agent or not. I think this is how science works, right? You you got your single and double blind stuff, and so we've got 10 senior investment bankers. I guess you need a control group. I don't know science. I got a philosophy degree, but
index
like
fund.
Five.
That's
of them,
your control group. The
yeah,
index fund.
5 of them are going to get an agent, and 5 of them are going to get a human, but they're all going to interact with them through a chat interface.
Right.
And somehow
or you just make it email based, make it even keep it the same. It's like you just give them names. It's like Jane Doe, John Doe. And you just the only rule is like you can never ask to meet with them in person. Everything has to be done via
and you're not allowed
email.
to ask them if they are an AI. That would be cheating. Of
Even
course,
that, like,
they're gonna
who knows?
lie.
Maybe let them like argue if they want to spend time. But I just think like that would be the thing, and be like, okay, you got the junior baker agent, you got the junior banker real person. Like, what happened? Like when someone's making that level of like, kind of experiment, then I think we're at a point where like, okay, it's going to be interesting because they're really putting real money on the line. It's like some senior banker their success is tied now to an AI agent. So if it's not working, like I think they're going to tell you pretty quickly. And that's, or they're going to be like, yeah, it's fine,
Okay. All right. There you go. 2026, CY 2026, the Brandon's Enterprise Turing Test.
I love
it. Find out what actually works. Well, before we get to wrapping up, I wanted to mention a couple of other things. There's some developer surveys that have been out recently. There's the I think the JetBrains, the IntelliJ developer survey, and then somewhat coincidentally, the third part of a 3-part series from the pragmatic engineer people surveying what tools their developers use came out. I was actually you can't tell listening to this, but I was quite a bit late here because I was so engrossed in reading the charts in part 2 of this series. And as I was reading through both of these, what struck me is like, of course, there's AI talk in it, but then you go look at all the tools and technologies that people use, and it has nothing to do with AI. So, for example, a lot of Datadog talk, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of like monitoring talk and all this stuff. And it was making me winsome for the days when we would talk about monitoring and like all of these things that are just like, here's the stuff people are actually doing day to day. For example, we don't need to discuss it unless we want to, but like, man, people really hate Jira. And yet it is like
super popular
by double digits, whatever that means, the leader. And like there's all sorts of interesting stuff in these surveys. I always have questions about like, even medium-term listeners will know, like the first thing I want to do with any survey is say, do you work for a tech company? You're out. Because I think there's a huge divide between those two things, but whatever. But yeah, like looking through those surveys, it was very, it was nice because there was really no AI in it. There like part 1, a whole bunch of how you use AI, but even that was just half of it, and then it was just onto the other stuff. So it turns out there's all this other stuff people are still doing that is great or great.
Is it weird that like the top thing is Docker? I feel like that's just like been there for like years.
Well,
I think I don't know, like what does that even? I don't know. Well, like what does that even mean?
That is a good chart maybe for the readers to go look, the listeners to go look at. There is this one chart. I mean, there's lots of charts, but one chart that I spent a lot of time staring at is it ranks back in technologies used, and I think there's some category error there because it's basically like Kubernetes, all the Amazon something or another's. It even has Helm in there, and then there's Docker, and I think like Docker is like saying pencil, and all these other things are like printing press, distribution, so I get that you use Docker there, but it doesn't really belong in the same category as like all the star KSs. Like these are different things, but that might also explain the like disconnect between infrastructure people and developer people is that developer people put Docker in the same category as Kubernetes, and that I think that might have solved the whole
And there-
conflict.
and
that
there
we've
lies
had
the
for
problem.
decades. Different scales of things. Well, speaking of places where the problem lies in, Brandon, do we have any bureaucracy this episode?
The only bureaucracy is simply if you would like a sticker, send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I'm happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
And it's always good to have stickers on hand. I was with someone recently. They always have lots of stickers, but for some reason they didn't have them, and it was for 5 milliseconds emotionally draining, and then I got over myself. I'll just get stickers from the next time. Well, there's not a lot of conferences to list at the moment. There'll be more coming up probably when everyone's back from the next year. That happens soon. But there is the Wiz Wisdom Conference. There's 2 of them in New York City, November 3rd to 5th. And then there's also one in London, November 17th to 19th. There's also, I'll be next week at SRE Day Amsterdam. At the ING is hosting this at a very nice campus. I've been there before. It's good stuff. Right next to where my kids go to school. So, I mean, don't be creepy about it. But I'll be speaking there. That's next week, November 7th, SRE Day Amsterdam. And then there is DevOps Days LA and Scale 23X. That's going to be March 6th in Pasadena. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this year because I haven't planned on doing it. But you can get a code, DevOp, which, as I like to say every year, I applaud them for not putting an S on there and making it weird. It's fantastic. You can be a DevOp, and you get 50% off, and the CFP is still open until December 1st. It's a great couple of conferences. Maybe I should submit a talk there. We'll
You
see.
should.
Test out T&E theory. See if I can get Claude to write me a pivot table. Now, with that, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this episode?
So my recommendation this week is it's gonna only apply to like a very few people who are devoted sports fans. But I like this new podcast. It's called Pablo Torre Finds Out, and he did a episode on Michael Lombardi. Quick history here: Michael Lombardi is the general manager that works for Bill Belichick at the University of North Carolina. Anyway, they've worked together for years, and he did something that I think is just a fantastic podcast format. This person had written a book, and he essentially went through this person's book and essentially his LinkedIn or his resume, if you will, and just fact checked everything. Like sort of like, who is this person? He said he did X, he said he did Y, and I just called everybody and did, like, tell me like what really happened. And so the net of this is simply, he claims to have basically been a part of 3 Super Bowl winning teams. And he kind of aligns himself as like playing a role in each one of those teams. So the long story short is like, sounds like he had like very low level jobs on 2 of the teams where he wasn't really a significant contributor. And then on the 3rd team, sounds like he was just kind of gifted a ring after the fact, having not worked with the team. And I just like this. Like, I don't know if it says something about me as a bad person, but I just like, sometimes I just think the whole podcast, and then there are people that do it, like, it's sort of like, I'm just going to fact check like a whole bunch of things that have been taken as correct is so, I mean, the entertainment value to me personally is just phenomenal. So this is a person that I'm not that familiar with, but I follow football and I was very familiar with like what was going on. And I always just kind of wondered like, wow, these people don't seem to really know what they're doing, even though they've won all these Super Bowls. And so having someone go through and just destroy this person's resume and kind of show that they played a far less significant role than they portrayed, I enjoyed listening to this. So probably if you're a football fan and you follow Bill Belichick, maybe you would want to listen to it. I guess in the same vein, I think If Books Could Kill is like another podcast that sort of like fact checks books. But anyway, I don't know. I just find myself, and maybe Cote or Matt, you can tell me, it's like, I feel bad about liking these podcasts, but I got to tell you, man, I'm always up for someone just fact checking somebody that has built themselves up to be like the guru of something and then taking them down. I don't know what it is about me. I can't get enough. So if you would like to experience one of those podcasts, you can listen to this one. If not, I am sure there are many other podcasts in a genre you're more familiar with. And I hope somebody will create the podcast Fact Check where they just do this all day long. That's all they do is just fact check resumes. So that's my recommendation.
Did that start as he's reading this biography and thinking, oh, that can't be right, or was it like somebody, the crowd surfing just came to him and said, you got to see this thing, this is out of hand. I mean, because now that I've you've put those thoughts to words, and I was like, every time I read a biography I think this, like, how much is this just like inventing a backstory for myself as the main character in the world versus like, oh, I just happened to be there, right?
No, for sure. Like, I think any type of narrative nonfiction is, you have to watch out for. I think any type of autobiography, for sure, you have to go in like red flag. Like, everything you're about to read is very manicured, and
I mean, this is Halo Effect, the podcast,
yeah, and that
right?
is, I guess, too, for longtime listeners, like, this is sort of like my genre of Halo Effect. So I don't know. You're always looking for like, I like narrative nonfiction, but you're looking for like a journalist kind of, somebody kind of went in with a neutral point of view, and then maybe they were swayed one way or the other. Although sometimes that doesn't work as well. And like, in our world, like, Matt mentioned biographies, but like, there's so many of these articles, and just doing this podcast sometimes, like, I come across these things and I wish someone would do it. Like, I guess I'll pick on the Salesforce one. Like, recently, we didn't really talk about it, but like, there was a claim by Mark Benioff that like Salesforce had saved over $100 million because of AI. And I just immediately was like, I want Pablo Turi to go to Salesforce and like fact check this. Like, I want him to go through and be like, show me where, like, line by line, I want a spreadsheet of where the $100 million came from, because it seems impossible, right? That seems completely not credible, right? So I don't know. I just think there's like millions of these things that you see every day, and I just enjoy when someone takes the time to be like, I'm going to go find out what's right. And I guess I would enjoy one too if someone came out and be like, it turns out everything that was in here was true.
Oh, I'd love that.
In fact, they even downplayed some of the stuff they did before. Like, I have a neighbor that is extremely successful that I didn't know anything about the other night. And this person, like, I had to pry his achievements out of him. And every time after, like, he would reveal something, I was like more blown away. And you're just like, and you just don't know, right? Sometimes, like, you're just like, the person next door is incredibly well achieved and you have no idea. And other times, this person that's been built up as the greatest champion of all time, turns out they didn't do anything. So there you have it. Check out that podcast if you want more of that.
Wow. Emphatic review. How about yourself, Matt Ray?
Well, I have a recommendation that ties to a lot of what we talked about this episode. There was a podcast late last year called the Shell Game Podcast. Brandon, did you already recommend this and I forgot? But
I don't think so. No, I'm interested to hear what it is.
This reporter started using AI audio clone of himself to start making calls and interviews and
I did, yes.
And his therapist and just like anything he could use, his family, and following up and getting reactions to them. And it's creepy as fuck. But it's also,
clear, I did hear it now you're talking about it, but he didn't tell anyone. He just did it.
Well, yeah, but afterwards he followed up with that.
Right. But that was the thing that was weird about it. Like, he sent people in blind. Like, people had no idea what was going on. Yes.
Absolutely. And interviews with AI executives, it's so dystopian. But after like seeing that, you can't unsee it. Like, I think I'm done answering my phone.
Well, the craziest part, we should say that the craziest part is that because he trains it by he puts like his phone, he gets a phone, right? And then he just puts the number out there, and he starts to get all these telemarketers, and he just lets the AI answer the phone.
Yeah.
And it is so bizarre. You hear the interactions of the AI trying to communicate with and it's weird, especially when it's like, give me a credit card number, and it just gives like 3 digits.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like 75 digits consecutive. It is, and then you hear the person on the other line just so confused. I don't even know. It's like, is it entertainment or is it just? It's like some kind of weird like performance art. So I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah,
that's kind of like I was showing my wife Kim a bunch of Sora videos, and she was like, thanks, Michael. You ruined the internet for me. Now I don't trust any of these videos.
I mean, this is
man.
Yeah.
And so, she was like, stop showing this to me.
The full 6 episodes are a bit much. It was on the search engine podcast, they kind of hit some of the highlights. So if you don't want the full engagement, it's there. But oof, it's much.
Well, my recommendation, it's kind of out of a weird corner, but I read this article and I thought, man, this is I love how to convince people how to do some rhetoric, and it is. I don't know anything about this person. Great name, Jim Olds. Looks like a great person. So I don't know if I'm recommending whatever, but it's called "What Grant Reviewers Actually Look For," open parentheses, and what they ignore, close parentheses. And, I don't know why I started reading something about writing grants, because I got nothing there. But you read it and you realize that this is really for any situation where you are trying to get someone else to advocate for you. And his whole point is that when you're writing a grant, it's going to go to a board of people who are going to be looking over hundreds of these. And so really what your job is to understand the meeting where they're reviewing the grants. And you're going to have this is like enterprise sales. You're going to have like 1 to 2 champions, and you need to get to, as we would say, arm your champions to like have a successful message and be able to articulate it about your pitch. And I thought that insight was so great. And there's other ones in there that like, it's worth kind of reading over it and thinking how you apply it to whenever you're trying to convince someone of something, which is a lot of what knowledge work is. And for example, this applies to getting a talk accepted at a conference, because I haven't been on that many because I try to avoid it at this time in my life. But, if you've ever been on a talk selecting, what do they call it, Matt Ray, committee group?
Sure, yeah.
You're like the four or six people who are reading for this track in the conference, selecting the talks. It's exactly this. What you want to, you're going to find one person in that group who likes your talk, and they're going to have to convince everyone else that your talk should be accepted over some talk that someone else wants. And so you kind of have to write your CFP for that situation as well. But anyways, we'll put a link to it if you go to, our show notes, which are at softwaredefinedtalk.com. I think this is the most I've ever said this URL in an episode. At softwaredefinedtalk.com/544. And you should read through it. I think it's good. It's good rhetoric training for you. Best rhetoric training is always the training that Socrates hated, which is like the last thing you should worry about in your argument is what you're saying. Like, what the truth of the matter is the least relevant of any argument you're ever going to have. So, Merry Christmas for that. And speaking of things that you should enjoy and things that are important, what has really been important is that you listen to this episode. It's not important if people listen to it. What's important is that they download it. So go to all of your friends, your enemies, your kids, immediately open up their device, subscribe to the podcast, and you can express your enjoyment of what you just listened to by giving other people the opportunity to be in our numbers and not enjoy our product. I think is what we enjoy. Now, if they do listen to it, so much the better. We love that too. And with that, thank you for listening to us and downloading the podcast. We'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Matt. Well, you made it. We saw you. You come, you go.
Oh,
you had to put your dog in quarantine for the rest of the show.
I went. He knew what I was trying to do. It was running away from me, and I finally grabbed him and put him in the garage in the car. My wife took him for a walk, so
they put him in the car. Nice.
That's what
clear,
we have to do.
It's
either that or daycare, right?
The important part is the dog was not hurt in the recording.
Oh,
of this
no.
podcast,
He's fine. He's fine.
Well, that's good. Well, good to hear it. Well, listen.
And the fence is being installed.
But of course, Matt Ray's new house saga continues on. It's going to be content for this show for the rest of his life. So it's fantastic.
Jesus.
So. All right. Well, thanks for everyone that hung out. I saw a lot of people in the chat today. I saw Michael. Michael's going to get some stickers. Henning. And many others. So we always appreciate those that watch us live. And of course, we appreciate those that watch us on YouTube. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye.